Francisco, it's been a real treat to spend this week together here in La Jolla, California, at Summerfest. Yeah, yes. Making some beautiful music together. And you've got like a really fantastic special fiddle.
Yeah, we do.
Tell us a little bit about this instrument.
Sure. Well, it was made in 1735. It's Guarneri, Giuseppe Guarneri del Gesu. That's the nickname or the reason why. I don't know if people know about it, but there's actually, he was the youngest of five makers, kind of the last one of his generation, of his family's tree, and there's actually a little cross on the label. Yeah. And so his religious, men of faith. So
Gesù is in Jesus.
In Jesus.
And, yes, right. And so this instrument is then an offering to God. Is that what?
I guess so. I don't know, but So this one specifically is called Mary Portman, Guarneri, Miss Mary Portman, the owner of the instrument, and myself call her Miss Mary.
Miss Mary?
Yes.
Okay.
She's, my partner in crime on stage and all that. And probably the most famous owner of this instrument at some point, 1898, was Fritz Kreisler.
That's just kind of incredible. Yeah. Do you have any pictures of Kreisler playing this instrument or recordings that you know about?
It's so frustrating because it was right, it was his first Guarneri, his first big purchase. Back when you could still buy instruments like this as a musician, and he only had it for a few years. And it was right before the wax recording started to happen. So so there isn't a recording of him playing it.
Wow. Do you know any pieces that were written around that period?
It was very early in his career. So he was he's still, most of his writing came a little bit later.
Okay.
But I mean, I find it so cool that to play like Recitativo and Scherzo or like Liebeslied, pieces like that, knowing that that basically this violin had a big influence in the way he listened, the way he thought about music, the kind of sound that he wanted.
Sure.
And things like that.
Oh, that's kind of incredible. Yeah. So how long have you had this instrument?
I've had it since 2016.
2016.
Okay. Yeah, it's part of the Stradivarius Society of Chicago.
Yeah, 5 years.
It's actually, and it's so funny with these instruments because they have massive personalities. Like, I feel like the more expensive they get, the more personality they have in a way, which makes it the more kind of narrow, like the more the match matters so much, And before that, I was playing on a really beautiful Strad from competition in Japan, and I actually did a little gala for the owner of this instrument for our foundation, and she was just like, "That's not the right fit for you," and I'm like, "I agree, but I don't really have a choice."
Yeah, right. So it's like you're not so much of a Strad guy, more of a Del Gesu guy.
Definitely. I mean, I think it sounds ridiculous.
Embarrassment of riches. So how would you characterize those differences in your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the most obvious difference is Del Gesus, Guarnerius are usually you can be much more physical with the instrument. They're
much really lay into it.
Yeah, lay into it.
It's like a viola.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm really bad at viola though. But it's almost like the more engaged you are, the more the instrument gives you. And I feel with stress, it's the opposite. It's the less you do, the more the instrument just does its own thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not, the patient, disengaged, like chill kind of dude. So, I think it's a pretty obvious match. But specifically this instrument, what makes it so special is the middle register. So Guarnerius are usually known for having this really powerful, kind of punchy G string. The low register, it has a nice G string, a great E string, but the middle register, I mean, I tend to think that's why Kreisler, decided to buy it, because it's such a sweetness to it and such a almost gentleness to the A string and to the D string, the middle register, that is very rare actually for Guarnerius. Usually those are kind of like the weak spots. Yeah. For this one, it's the strength.
And how do you think that came to pass? Like, is the pattern different? Has it been through different kinds of work?
I don't know.
Like what might account for that difference?
For that difference between them,
with this instrument specifically.
That's a great question actually. I don't quite know. I mean, I think it's slightly more, kind of the lines are. I think it's one of the more refined Guarnerius I've seen. Usually, like especially later in his violin making life, they become really kind of angular and very rough looking.
Yeah.
This one and some of these middle period Del Gesus are slightly just more refined and a little bit rounder. And it's almost like you can see it as a rounder, and it sounds that way too.
Yeah, and I find it so fascinating also that you're playing a lot of classical and pre-classical music on this with, kind of a funny stick.
Yeah.
You've got your
Baroque bow.
Your Baroque bow.
That's right. We've been playing a bunch of this music this week.
So and it's kind of interesting. It's like on a Del Gesu, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like it almost seems like a contradiction in terms of modern standards, but it seems to work really well. So like, what's up with that?
Yeah. So it was funny. I remember when very beginning of having the instrument, and the owner was like, Miss Mary really likes gut strings, and I'm like, huh. I'm like, that's kind of weird because we think of Del Gesu as this like powerhouse, to fill in, Carnegie Hall or like some several halls, some massive hall, right? Yeah. That's the whole point of having one in a way, right? Playing a concerto over a big orchestra. Yeah. But then, as I said, this one has this almost like alter ego, and so I just I love like kind of I'm pretty extreme I think in the way I try to approach each composer, kind of like the sound world, almost like the technical side of things, like really trying to change the way I play based on each of the composers and each of the periods. And so it was very natural for me to explore the more Baroque style of things and playing with period style and with the Baroque bow. And then I started using gut strings to play Bach on, and then I added the D string as open gut as well, and it actually works really well on this. I don't have to change the bridge or kind of have a full Baroque setup like you would, but it sounds so much better than any Baroque violin, like full setup, really nice Baroque violins. Like it really responds like just right, and it blends in, and you would never expect it to have this massive sound the way it does on regular strings.
Yeah, that's great. Have you been playing on any other Baroque setup instruments?
Once I was doing more like recitals and like Baroque projects, I really tried to find like a nice instrument that maybe I could afford, that somebody would lend me, and anything I tried, it just wasn't even close. Like I would try for a few weeks, and then like I would end up just switching the strings and putting them on here.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the range of colors that this instrument gives you, there's nothing like it. I mean, when people, especially like people that are not musicians, ask me, it's like, what makes it so special, right? Like, why do we want to play on instruments like this? And I'm like, well, look, it's like, think like a painter. It's like you can be Picasso, you can be Dali, and you can give them like 20 brushes and 8 colors. They can probably do an incredible job, and like a really beautiful piece of art. But if you give them like an unlimited palette and like any brush they want, then it just gives you this freedom. That's the way I put it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Do you mind playing a few notes?
Sure, of course.
All right.
I'm gonna play some. Well, since it's Kreisler's, we'll do some Recitativo and Scherzo. Well, the first part of it, and just pay attention to that. Yeah, to that almost. It's almost like I call it like emotional sweetness that it has in the middle register, and even you'll hear the punchy opening, but then just really pay attention to the difference in color once it goes just a little bit higher on the A string.